Hello, it's Katie, and I'm here to discuss Chapter 5, Sketching Critical and Collaborative Communication. I really enjoyed and appreciated the statement on page 84 when it talked about the benefits of conversation with no agenda. I think a lot of times I had viewed these times where I'd step into a staff member's room or office and just have those conversations that evolve into different things or just kind of to check in. Sometimes they can turn into complaining or venting, which it can be wasted time. But then I also, the way that it was worded and the way that it discussed the conversations without an agenda is that those conversations often are times when people are speaking freely. They're able to share what's at the forefront of their mind. And so a lot of times they will share something great that's happening or something that they realize they need to do better. Or it might be opportunities where you can just sit and listen and find out what is it that is working in that classroom or what isn't working. And sometimes getting to know that person can help, obviously, with a huge difference with the relational factor that I'll talk about in a little bit. My husband is a pastor, and at the moment, he's at a church where he's the only pastor on staff. And so he does not have anybody around him at our church to be able to bounce ideas off of or to, as far as in that clergy position, or that can be a peer. So when he gets opportunities to have conversations with other clergy members, it's helpful and beneficial for him. First, because they can relate and understand where his point of view is, and also because they can share ideas, they can share problems and how they've overcome them, and share successes, and they are in that same type of position. So I think that's beneficial for them. I know that he has shared that with me, that it's helpful for him. Last week, I met with our RTI specialist, and I shared with her some of the ideas from our text, specifically how sending out an agenda to the people before the meetings, when you're having those structured meetings, if you'll send an agenda saying, this is what we're going to be going over, please bring anything if you'd like to add to these topics, and let me know if you have anything you want to add to the agenda. I know that I worked for a principal who did this every time we had a staff meeting. And so she really opened it up to the whole campus so that we were mindful of what was coming up and that we were able to add to it or come prepared to discuss things. And just getting that right frame of mind when you're coming into a conversation helps, I think, the meeting go smoother, and it lets us problem solve better because we're not coming back later saying, oh, I wish that I would have thought of this, or I wish, I had this information. We might be able to get it all in that one setting when we sit down, when we're given the information prior to. I think in doing this, we also, as the text stated, are able to use each other as a resource because we all understand that our common goal is for students. And when we're able to look and say, I'm doing this for the students, I'm doing this to help my students learn, then that is really our main goal. And so we're able to communicate more effectively when we all understand and are working towards that goal. On page 84 and 85, and this is a page that I just kept referring back to, the relationships piece that is mentioned, how important that is. And I think that's where it's important that those relationships that we have with people are genuine. But they take time to get to know people, and it takes time to build trust. And I think all of those things are difficult to do when we're working on such time constraints. I have worked in groups before where everyone eats in their classrooms at lunch instead of going to the teacher's lounge. I've also been on other teams where the whole team gathers together in the teacher's lounge and sits at a table together and eats and just decompresses and really don't talk much about school that day. So we're getting to know one another. We're able to laugh outside of that work relationship. But I think time is just the biggest deal. And it's one of those things where you just have to make time. Um, we can get caught up in running to everything, and it is important for us to meet those deadlines and to do follow schedules. But it's important to make time to build relationships with those people around us, especially I think as literacy coaches, as literacy leaders, because we need to know our staff. If we don't know our staff and if they don't know us, we need to be able to trust one another's motives, trust intentions. And so I think that's really important. Um, I also, on page 88, it talks about how you have those conversations where you're being proactive with critical communication skills. And one of the things that I feel like was really effective is that or the listener should be asking questions, finding out and trying to discover so that you can help generate, plan, and produce things to move forward. Um, what is it that the teacher is wanting? What is their goal? What is it that they are struggling with? What is working? And how can we go from there? I think talking to and asking questions and using those questions to guide the discussion can make a big difference. I also on page 90 appreciated the speakers when we're looking at the speaker's message, and the statement was made, don't be intimidated by questions. Um, I know sometimes when people ask questions, I've often immediately become on the defense because I think maybe they don't agree, when really they just may want to have more information so that they fully understand. And I know that that's a lot of when I ask questions, it isn't because I'm trying to be confrontational, but I want to make sure I'm understanding all the parts that they're talking about. Um, I worked with a teacher who constantly asked so many questions when you would present something that it just made you feel like she really wasn't supportive. And I was the team lead at the time, so I felt like she was drilling me, and she recognized that. She was perceptive in, I guess, my body language or my facial expression, and she said, I am the type of person that I just need all the information. And she said, I don't disagree with you. I'm not trying to be a defensive. I'm just wanting to get all the information. And once I have all the information, I'm ready to roll. And so when she explained it to me like that, I kind of got it a little better. And this helped, just reading this in text this week helped me understand that even more. And so I think that can be important for us to remember. Questions does not mean disagreement. One of the things that I think is also important, though, is when we're done with a meeting is to reflect and to think about what are some things that we need to do. We ask teachers to reflect all the time. In chapter 3, it suggests having teachers reflect in our text. And so we need to be reflecting what's making this a great meeting. How is this beneficial? What could we have done differently? What things do we need to revisit? And so I think that will be important for us moving forward. And then on page 92, when the text refers to the listener, I also appreciated the quote. It says, listen to the messages behind the words. Sometimes, depending on who is in the room, will change the way something is said. And so it's important to know who is in the meeting. And I know that sometimes when I'm concerned about offending someone, I may not say things as bluntly as they could be, or as clear. I think clear would be a better word. Clear as I would be if there was someone who wasn't so abrasive in the room, or if there was someone who maybe wasn't the superintendent or the principal. We all, I think, speak a little bit freely, or at least I do, when depending on who I'm around, if it's just my peers versus the administrators. And so I think that if we can just remember the goal of the whole idea in communication, as mentioned on page 99, is that communication is to promote an interactive climate. And so being able to communicate with one another is effectively is going to be important in our role. And so that's something I know that I plan to work on. And I'm curious to find what challenges and how you've overcome them in your teaching career or in your coaching career. Thank you.